Good evening, everybody. George Wheeler here with Tom Hall, and we will be talking today from Global Security Leadership about leading millennials. That's the topic that I really brought out for tonight. And Tom and I have both had an opportunity to lead large organizations. And one of the things I always talk about, Tom, in people's organizations is you have to have diversity. But, we used to always think about diversity as, race, religion, culture, things like that. We never really thought of diversity as the generation gap of the people that you're in charge of. In your day-to-day activities, do you see this becoming more of an issue?
Sure, but it's not one that we can't overcome. So look at me. I've been in the business almost 40 years. So imagine, so most of the millennials in the organization that I work for are my grandchildren's age, okay? So how do I maintain a relationship with those guys is I had to enhance my generational IQ, okay? So I'm more of a mentor relationship, folks in the maybe the generation at the manager level, those guys have a different type of relationship with the millennials than I do. They see me as more of a mentor because I think that's a lot of the things that they're looking for. And I try to be very, very open. They're very, very technology sound. So I try to keep up with the technology to learn how they communicate. They're here, we're moving on through the workplace. So what my role is to invest in them. My job is to invest in them to help them become successful and to make sure that they know that I'm here for them. That's how we lead. We've been doing this 40 years, George. So what are we giving back? My job is now to give them all that I can give them to make them as successful as possible before I take my next step.
And Tom, one of the things I look at on the internet right now, there's a lot of video gaffes about millennials in the workplace. And they're kind of funny videos. Obviously they stereotype what people would consider a millennial in the workplace. And that kind of stereotype is really starting to take hold. I mean, when you start having a lot of videos posted about a generation of people in the workplace, if people were putting kind of like, if this was like women in the workplace, people would be really angry at these videos. They wouldn't think it was so funny. But because they're kind of picking on a generation, which is kind of, it's raceless, it's genderless, it's culturalist in a sense, we allow it to happen. But do you think that impacts the generation itself by having a negative view?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we shouldn't categorize them any more than when I came into industry back in '79. And, I started my career in policing, and I went with a state police organization where there were only about 30 or 40 African-Americans within their whole state police organization. So everybody made assumptions about how we should be treated and how we should be led. We shouldn't make assumptions just based on their age. That's foolishness. Give them all an opportunity. George, you lead people from where they are.
Yeah, Tom, absolutely. It's kind of funny because you mentioned, this is actually age discrimination in a sense. It used to be, we used to always think of this as the older individuals who had retired, but they weren't ready to leave the workforce yet. They still needed insurance. They still need to earn some money. They were still in our workforces, but we would always say that, they couldn't advance their careers. There was kind of discrimination against older people in the workplace, but is it turning around now? Or are they kind of discriminating against this younger generation?
Well, that's what we're seeing, because if we don't learn how to exist with them and support them and help them and become peers with them, yes. It doesn't matter what your age is. What's the goal of the organization? Where is it that we're trying to go to? Our job is to reach that particular goal, right? It doesn't matter on my team what age or what ethnicity or what gender someone is. Are we giving them the tools and we give them the support they need for us to do what the board has empowered me to get done? That's the only question.
And Tom, we look at this situation that occurred. This is a workplace that worked with behaviorally challenged individuals, and then this person makes an inappropriate comment, and the security guard company lost the entire contract. I look at that and I think, if you lost an entire contract over one post, which it was almost an innocuous post, it was the way the person wrote it, yes, it was a little bit sarcastic, kind of in a sense mocking the behaviorally challenged individuals who were at the hospital. But if you lost the entire contract over that, don't you think there's bigger problems there than that one post?
Absolutely. Okay. If you're bringing in a security guarding company and you're going to have them as your vendor and you're bringing them in for a reason, right? The only reason if you bring in a security guard company is because you don't want to hire classified employees. So you're looking for cost avoidance, right? So you want them to take on that challenge, right? So you're bringing them in to save the business money, right? So if we're having an issue with the person that's ill-trained and ill-performed, let's manage that issue. Do we need to manage that individual out of the organization? Let's look at that. Do we need to have the whole team retrained? Yes, because if you're just going to eliminate the entire contract, George, what about the cancellation clause? If I'm on the proprietary side and that's my vendor, and I'm going to get rid of the entire contract because that person did not perform according to the rules, there's going to be a clause, and normally it's a minimum of 30 days, right? So that means we're gonna lose money on this contract. What about retraining? What about refitting? You know, that's the piece that I would look at immediately. If that person wasn't a good fit for our business, let's figure out maybe he's not a good fit. Maybe he could be transferred within their organization somewhere else where he would be a better fit for that site. Now let's bring in all their supervisors, all their managers. Let's retrain the whole team and let's refocus on attaining the goal that we signed the contract to deliver on.
Yeah, I think it almost seems like a scapegoat thing where maybe the hospital, I don't know. I'm not saying that there were other problems there, but it was like kind of like this was kind of a final straw to me, because that organization, it had to be, first of all, it's always a terrible thing when an employee does something of this nature and you find out, if you're the security company, and I've had this happen to me, but you're the security company and you find out from the customer what had happened. You know, it's so much better when you can go to the customer and say, hey, we just had this situation, we're taking care of this. But when they come to you, Tom, does the company already have conversations amongst themselves before they go to that security company and say, hey, by the way, your employee did this, and because of his actions, we're gonna terminate our contract? I mean, have they already had those conversations before they even go to you?
Yeah, they have to. If I put myself in, and you know, and I've been there, I've been the chief security officer, right? So that contract, that's my vendor, and so my board is telling me, you know, that we don't like that performance. So I'm going to go to my board with a plan. This is how we're going to tweak the performance. We're going to change the performance. I'm going to keep my eye on my delivery of services and my bottom line. And one other most important thing is brand name. I don't want things to impact brand. I don't want anything that can negatively impact the brand of my organization. So I don't want a whole lot in the press. I don't want a whole lot written about this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to manage this as succinctly and quickly and quietly as I possibly can. This seems to me, from what I read, I don't know the angles, but just reading it, a great retraining opportunity for the security organization. I don't know why they decided they want to just boot them out and pay the cost associated with that now. And now bring in another organization. You're going to bring another organization temporarily. You got to put out another contract bid. There's a lot of costs associated with that. Can I do some retraining and retweaking and get the services that I want without the cost?
And Tom, the employee, of course, made a major mistake in making this post. But the people who are managing that employee, they have some responsibility in this also. It's not just this employee's mistake. The people who manage, because when I saw the article itself, I saw it on a social media site, and the comments below that article were all, you know, like typical millennial in the workforce type stuff. And it kind of took me back, because I thought, well, I don't look at it just a failure of this employee. I think the support that employee had at work failed him or her. I don't know if it actually says if it's a him or her, but I think they were failed by their leadership in not getting the support they need. And also, they need to be constantly engaged and reminded, hey, you're the face of our company. You're the face of our client's company.
Absolutely.
Every action you take, you know, it falls either positively or negatively on us, and you have a role and responsibility to make sure that you're doing the best you can to keep us in that good image, especially for our customer, but then for our customer to their clients also.
George, so in one area where I was when I was leading, I had my contract provider had as many as 500 security officers. That's a pretty large force.
Okay.
So let's say this happened with at that particular location, because we were working together at that time. So imagine if this same situation happened. Do you think I'm going to eliminate a 500-person guard force because one of them screwed up? And obviously, that person's supervisor and manager, we need to bring them in, and maybe they need to be retrained. I would leave that up to the guarding company and say they may not be a good fit for my business, but I'm not going to get rid of 475 people based on that. We're going to reinvent this organization. We're going to reinvent how they bring the services to us, as opposed to just, that's the way I would look at it. I'm looking at it as, once again, I want to protect brand. And this is when I go to my board, this is what we've done, not to have a repeat of this. We're not police department where we arrive, we're first tier organization, right? The security officers are already there. So they're there in place. They're the ambassadors for the company. The face that you see and the impression you're going to have of the organization is going to be made with that 1.5 to 2 to 3 minutes that you have with that security. They are the face of my organization. I'm going to make sure that that face improves, maybe some change, but I'm not going to eliminate 475 officers based on the poor performance of that one officer. This is a great retraining opportunity and get them to focus back on branding.
And Tom, one of the things that, at least maybe not in the US, but in other countries I've seen this, some of the, yes, there's an expense that goes with changing out the security guard force, but you're going to keep the same guards, because when you change forces, they let all those guards go because they don't have other accounts for them, and then a new company just picks them up anyways. So it's not like all the guards would actually lose their job because of that one person, but it does still have a major impact on both that company that just lost all that revenue and the guard force when they see that happens. And you know, as that new company comes in, what's the first thing you tell them?
I lost something in the translation, George, but what I would say, I've had situations, let's say one of my security officers was involved in sexually harassing one of my employees.
Right.
Am I going to eliminate the entire contract, or am I going to eliminate that individual? They're going to discipline their supervisors, maybe. But we're not going to move on the whole entire contract because of deficiencies in that one person. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
I don't think so either. And that's why I love this example, because like I said, I saw the comments underneath the story, and people were kind of blaming that individual and that person. Instead, they blamed him on being a millennial. But I think it's so much bigger than that. But we do have millennials in our workplace, and we do have to manage them. Now, in the guarding industry, in security industry, there is usually a shortage of guards, and companies will hire kind of almost anybody that they can. Do you find that security guarding companies are bringing people in and not giving them the proper training that they need because they're just trying to filter people through so fast?
That happens on a routine basis, George. You know, in my time in the industry, the organization that we referred to earlier, where we had as many as 500 guards, George, what would you say the average attrition rate is in the security guard industry?
Overall, I would say it's 60 to 80%.
Okay. You know, you were with me during the time, and you know, some people look at this as remarkable. Our attrition was never over 10%.
Yeah. Never.
So the difference is how the individuals, we're going to all get the same pool, but it's a matter of my officers love being at my site because the way that us as leaders treated the officers. People are more than their titles. We treated them a certain way because we didn't want the attrition. I get a good deal on the guard contract, but what hurts that good deal? If I start losing my officers, then the retraining cost, the attrition goes up. That's a killer for my cause. The attrition and retraining kills all the monies you made on the contract. So we make sure that they know how significant they are to the organization, and they're so comfortable in that environment, they don't want to leave us. So we make sure, and I'm doing the same thing now. Very low turnover in my guard force because they love the environment that we have them in. They're treated like they're employees. No, we're not involved in co-employment here, but co-employment allows us to treat them with very, very nice things. Everybody, you know, I believe in preferential treatment, George, because every damn body gets it, okay? we treat them the same way. When I say good morning, George, when I walk in, I'm also talking to my security officer, Leroy. Good morning, Leroy. He's going to be treated just as good as George. He's not going to want to leave my contract. So those are things that we can do to make sure that we don't have the attrition and to make sure we don't have the issues. Now, we have a personal issue, it's dealt with immediately. But they feel pretty good because they know they're ambassadors for the company. So their chests are poked out a little bit because they know that we rely on them to help us manage our brand. They're significant in our organization.
Absolutely. And Tom, down below this video, we have the acronym PRACTICED. And one of those letters is respect. And one of the things you're talking about is you show everybody respect. And it doesn't matter what your age group is or what your race is or what your gender is or orientation. It doesn't matter. If you treat everybody with respect, you're already starting to win points, and you're already showing leadership qualities just in the fact that you can respect diversity.
Absolutely. And, you know, this talk, you know, that gentleman just happened to be a millennial. Well, suppose that the gentleman was a baby boomer. Would you have the same blowback if it was a baby boomer? You know, so I think we should just let that alone. The person made a mistake in the head or mistake in the heart. How are we going to manage that mistake? Discipline is training that corrects, molds, strengthens, or perfects. We're going to engage in discipline. That's the bottom line there. Am I going to eliminate this? I keep going back to thinking I've got a contract with 500 officers, and I'm going to eliminate that whole entire contract based on the poor performance of one. I can't see where that makes a lot of sense at all. Not to me.
No, and you know, in being on the security side of that in the private security industry, having accounts that were that large or even 150 guards on certain accounts, you know, you can't, it's tough to be accountable for every guard's action at every time. That's why you have to make sure that you always have your client's best interest, of course, but you're also looking out for your people. Because if you're just, you can't pay attention to just one group of your people. You have to pay attention to everybody, because everybody's performance is constantly being evaluated by the customer, by the customer's customers, and by your organization. I always say that security kind of lives in this fishbowl, and everybody's looking at them. And some people tend to lose sight of that.
And by now, most organizations are going to have a policy on social media. So, you know, that contract organization should have been well versed in the policy. Everybody in our organization has to be well versed in the policy. You have to sign up for the policy. And I would suspect that person may not have known, or maybe they didn't have a policy in place.
So that's a really good point. And that's one of the things I like to really harp on is, and that goes back to leadership. The leaders should be telling people what their responsibility, what their roles are. And orientation is almost non-existent in some organizations. And that orientation is your first chance to make that impression of your organization on that guard or on that employee, to tell them these are our expectations. And if you miss that, you miss that golden opportunity to really connect with your employee, to let them know that they have chosen the right company to work for and that you're going to treat them better. Even if you have more expectations on them, they're not going to care if they know you care about them.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up orientation, because in a lot of the, sure, in companies, we're going to have an orientation for our employees, but how many companies are going to make sure there's an orientation for the security guarding company? So I'm going to make, it's imperative that each one, even if I have one or two, maybe they come in just 1, 2, or 3, each one of those security officers are also going to have to be trained in how we do things at our particular site. So those orientations have to take place with them. Maybe you're just replacing one officer. That one officer has to go through orientation as well, because this is the way we do things at our sites. This is the atmosphere. This is our culture. We have to immerse them in our culture. And without the training, it doesn't happen. They're just going to be the uniform guys standing outside the culture. Maybe if we make them feel more part of the culture, you wouldn't have those comments. I'm not the best security director in the United States of America, but I'm a damn good one.
Absolutely.
It has a lot to do with the way we treat the employees. My job is to inspire, nurture, and build a whole new generation of leaders. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. These young folks and these people, everybody is more than their titles. I don't know about that particular incident with this security officer going on social media saying things, but I think that this situation could be salvaged. It was a mistake. Was a mistake in the head, George? It was a mistake in the heart. Manage it, move it on. Maybe that person wasn't that a good fit for that particular site. But those other 495 officers, should they all move off the contract? Should we go to the board and say, now we want to lose the money in our cancellation clause? We're going to pay, bring in another contract. That seems to me pretty exorbitant over one issue.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I say there's no way that this one issue is why they lost that account. But that's how the media portrayed it, that it was because of this one issue that this guarding company lost this account. And I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. They had other issues leading up to that. And obviously the leadership within that organization hadn't done their responsibility in making sure that they didn't stop having issues, or that they properly did corrective training, that they actually made sure that when that organization, they were, I would say, in good standing, but that they had the trust and the respect of the organization that they were actually contracted to work with. They didn't have that, obviously, or else they wouldn't have lost it from that one particular issue. And then to make the one employee the scapegoat of why you lost it, that's not taking responsibility for your actions, which if you don't take responsibility, again, you're not going to be an effective leader.
Exactly. The only currency that a leader has in the security environment is trust. That's all I have, Judge, is my trust. So when one of the senior leaders sends for me, they're going to send me and says, whatever the issue is, Tom's got it. Once we put it in his hands, I've got it. So the security organization has to be trusted and respected across all sectors, across all departments, in order to be effective.
And Tom, the last thing I want to say is, one of the things when I bring this up on LinkedIn and things like that, one of the things I said we're talking about tonight is, leading millennials. But the truth is, I think people need to stop categorizing people. I think there's fundamental qualities of people. It doesn't matter, if we didn't categorize, it doesn't matter your race, religion, color, orientation, your gender, whatever it is, your generation. None of that matters. If you're a good leader, there are just fundamental qualities within you that you exhibit. And those are in the practiced acronym down below. If you have these qualities, it doesn't matter if somebody's in one generation, like I said, or of one race or of one gender. You can lead anybody if you follow that practiced leadership guide, because if you respect people, if you have their trust, if you can communicate, not just communicate with one generation, you have to be able to communicate with everybody. And it's not that, let's just use millennials as an example. It's not the millennials' responsibility, in a sense, to come to you and to come up to your level or to be able to communicate with you. It's your responsibility to communicate with them. It's your responsibility to, as you said early on, to make those relationships with those individuals. Don't expect them to always be able to come to you. You have to be able to come to them.
Absolutely. The way I look at it, George, I'm learning as much now as I've learned any other time in my career. And where am I learning the most from? The millennials. I learn more from them than I do from any other generation. I'm still excited about coming to work every day. And we see each other. We can't wait to see each other because we're going to learn something from each other. They don't need a title to lead. I'm learning from them. They have things to offer the organization, which is why they were recruited. My job is just make sure it's a secure environment and make sure that we're developing them and they're getting everything that they need. It's a give and take, and it works. But we can't categorize them. Well, the millennials this, just stop that. They're members of our team, and we're all dedicated toward attaining a common goal. That's all teamwork is. When each individual is dedicated toward attaining a common goal, they're part of the party, and we're all in this thing together.
Absolutely, Tom. I always appreciate your comments and talking to you, Tom, and I look forward to doing more of these weekly broadcasts with you on different leadership topics. Is there anything you'd like to say kind of in closing, Tom?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the opportunity, George. And based on the topic that you brought up about, the person making a mistake and the person doing something in social media is here to stay. And there are many, 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 many folks in the workplace now that do a lot with social media. I'd like to pass on something to the boomers and the folks in my generation. Let's learn from that generation. We're all in this to grow together, and we're all in this to attain the goals. Let's kind of learn together, and let's not categorize folks the way that some of us were categorized in our career. I mean, we may have come over in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now.
Absolutely, Tom. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. And I look forward to our conversation next week, which I will be putting out when the time and date for that conversation will be. And if you're joining us for these conversations, make sure that down below here, there's going to be a place where you can make comments. And as we're doing this, you can make comments in that section, and I'll be able to see those, either questions or comments, and we'll be able to answer questions if you have them. And we will answer those questions live, because it's not just Tom and I talking to everybody every week. We want this to be a true discussion. Part of the motto or the wording, our logo, whatever you want to call it, for ICR360 is join the conversation. And that's truly what we want here, is to be bringing other people in. Tell us your experiences. Tell us things that went well, things that didn't go so well. Share your experiences with us. But most importantly, especially if you're working your way up the ladder, ask us some questions, because Tom and I both have had the opportunity to, over the years, to get a wealth of experience. And we may have experienced something that you've gone through. But if we haven't, I guarantee you there's going to be another listener on here who will have an opportunity to answer what you have in your question down below here in this section. So thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to meeting with you all right here next week. Take care.